Chapter 7. Judy and Ned. Those who have not tried mating and raising birds have lost a great deal of pleasure. Besides being intensely interesting, one learns many things worth knowing. Once I heard a lady say she thought all women ought to raise birds before trying to bring up a family, for there was so much to be learned from the birds. I had a friend who was very anxious for me to try my luck at bird raising, so one day she brought over her handsome green and gold canary. At that time I had a number of birds, among them 3 which I thought were females, but I was only sure of one, a little girl sparrow. Blondel, a canary, was given to me for a female, but several said they were sure it was a male. She was an exquisite yellow of different shades, with a top knot of yellow tipped with white, then black with a catching little bang. Judy, a canary, was bought for a singer, but the person who gave her to me said she had never sung, but she thought the reason was because she had the asthma. I think she was a goldfinch, for she was very small, with black wing feathers and a pretty black top knot parted in the middle. I had named her after one of my dearest friends, so I immediately called the green canary Ned after her better half. Ned knew more than any of us, for as soon as he was let out of the cage, he flew over in front of Judy and sat down before her, never noticing the other birds, and poured the most entrancing song right into her ears. It certainly was love at first sight, and for a year their devotion was something rare to see. Then Blondel made trouble in the family. Ned and Judy's courtship was of a short duration, and soon they began housekeeping in good earnest. I gave them a cage and hung it on the wall, so they would not be bothered with the other birds. During the day they went where they pleased, but when night came they always went back to their cage and perched as close as they could to each other. After the eggs were laid and Judy had to sleep on the nest, Ned perched as close to the nest as he could get. Judy's nest was most beautifully made, a perfect symphony of colour and a delight to the eye. I gave to her bits of pink, blue, yellow, green and white cotton, little pieces of dainty-coloured baby ribbon and pink string. She wove the ribbons all in with the cotton, then festooned the outside with the pink string, and on the top she laid chickweed with its tiny white blossoms. When she was making her nest, I noticed she had the cotton very high above the basket, and none in the bottom, so I thought I would lend a helping hand and fix the bottom for her. A more angry bird I never saw when she discovered that I had been meddling with something I knew nothing about. She stood on the top of her nest and scolded for some time, then reached down and took out all of the cotton I had put in and threw it on the bottom of the cage. When she was ready, she put the cotton in to suit herself. She laid 4 eggs, but none hatched out, so she and Ned took the nest apart, and a new one was made of all new material, more beautiful than the first. She laid 4 eggs again, but the very long strain of setting was telling upon her, for Ned was not a good nurse, and did not like staying at home and feeding her. If it had not been for me, I am afraid she would have gone hungry many times. Finally 1 egg hatched out, and it was not as large as a bumblebee. Unfortunately, the chick only lived 1 day. By that time it was so warm I took the nest away, but Ned's devotion seemed to increase instead of diminish. Every morning they would kiss each other, and every night before going to sleep, and they always slept side by side. This went on for a year, and they were such a happy pair. In the spring they went to housekeeping again, and everything was going on in the most blissful way when Moni and Blondel thought they would like a beau and to go to housekeeping too. So they began to flirt and coquette in a most shocking way with Mr. Ned, a married man. I used to say, "You naughty, wicked girls, you better stop your nonsense, for Ned will never leave that dear little wife of his, for he loves her too dearly to waste any time on either of you." But alas, a little flattery was all that was needed to make him false to the loving wife, who simply adored him and was his slave. Judy and Ned had been in the habit of making love to each other on the top of a large mirror over my dressing table. They would promenade back and forth and toss their pretty heads, so you could easily imagine all the charming little tales of love Ned was confiding to Judy, and every little while they would kiss each other. Sweet little Moni, with her dainty, quiet dress, did not seem to have any charm for Ned, so she took up with Mac, who was English like herself. One day when Judy was sitting on her nest, and Ned was getting uneasy and very tired of staying at home and waiting upon her, Miss Blondel sallied forth with every feather preened, until she was a mass of shimmering gold. She went up on top of the mirror and promenaded, Well-knowing, admiring eyes were gazing at her, for how could anyone help looking at such grace and beauty? She soon began making eyes at Ned, and calling to him in a sweet, cooing voice to come to her. He simply could not resist her, and was soon by her side. Judy scolded and called to him many times to come home, but not the slightest attention did he pay her, and really I do not suppose he heard one word she said, for he was so completely fascinated with that exquisite blonde. Judy stood it as long as she could, but when Ned kissed Blondel before her very eyes, that was more than anyone could expect her to endure. She flew out of the cage, over onto the mirror, and if she did not tell the little blonde lady just what she thought of her, I am much mistaken. She then turned to Ned in her old, affectionate, bewitching way, with her pretty little head cocked on one side, and asked him to kiss her, but he refused for the first time. She went back to her nest broken-hearted and never interfered with them again. Soon Ned and Blondel had the face to go housekeeping right next door, Ned going from one house to the other, but Judy never allowed Blondel to enter her door. I feel sure that Ned really loved Judy the best, for he spent more time with her than he did with Blondel, but there was something about Blondel that he could not resist, for she simply hypnotized him. I was ill at the time, so I had plenty of leisure lying in bed to watch them. My nurse often said she was so interested in the bird she could hardly take care of her patient. Blondel was punished for making so much trouble for Judy, for none of her eggs hatched out. Then Ned's mistress took Blondel to her house and mated her with her bird, Dick. Blondel was only too delighted to have a new lover, and she soon forgot all about faithless Ned. She raised one lovely green and gold bird like his father. I brought them both home, and named her son Mike, after one of the most wonderful boy singers the world has ever known or ever will. Mike was always very uneasy and acted more like a wild bird, and it was impossible to keep him in his cage. He was full of all sorts of antics and loved to torment his mother. I looked forward to having a fine singer, but he was not contented in this small town. So one warm, bright morning in the fall he went abroad to cultivate his voice, and we have never seen him since. I still have Blondel, and some day I hope she may have another son.